wait years for an electric SUV to come along, and then 3 turn up pretty much at the same time, just like buses. First, we had the Jaguar I-Pace, Auto Express Car of the Year for 2018 and World Car of the Year for 2019. Now, Audi have brought the e-tron out. And next is this car, the Mercedes EQC. It's on sale now, you can get it delivered in July. In terms of pricing, the Audi EQC starts at just over £65,000 for the cheapest version. That's a little bit more expensive than the cheapest Jag, a little bit cheaper than the cheapest Audi. You'd think these manufacturers are looking at each other, wouldn't you? Oh yes. In terms of size, this car sits between the slightly smaller Jag and the slightly larger Audi. But although the Jaguar is shorter, it has a longer wheelbase than this car. But don't think that affects interior space too much. There's plenty of space in the back of this car. Now, let's talk about some other numbers, the most important one being range. The Mercedes EQC claims 258 miles. That's slightly less than the Jaguar, which says about 300, a little bit optimistic in my view, and the Audi is probably about the same. Now, I think Mercedes' claims of around 250 miles is pretty realistic. I'm driving this car in Norway at the moment. It's saying I've got about 100 kilometres of range left. Beeping at me as well, that's very kind. I beg your pardon? Don't interrupt, please. We'll come to that later. So, about 100 kilometres of range with about a quarter of a battery full of charge left, so around 400 kilometres, 240 miles. Yeah, it's around about 250 miles range, but you're not going to worry about that this time.
Oh, can you say that again, please?
I'd rather not, if that's okay by you. Hold fire, I'll come to you in a minute. It's got this system that keeps thinking I'm saying, hey Mercedes. But I won't say it too loudly, otherwise it will go off again. Full of tech, this car, as we will see. The other thing we always love about electric cars is the performance. This car claims 0 to 62 miles per hour in 5.1 seconds. A little bit slower than the Jaguar, a little bit quicker than the Audi. But it's that moment when you could just put your foot down and whoa, off you go, that makes electric car driving so special. And it's that combination of speed and silence that is odd, and that's perhaps what impresses me most about the EQC. This car is seriously quiet. Just a little bit of road noise. You can't really hear much of a whine from the electric motors, which you can on some cars. I was driving the Tesla Model 3 recently, and you could really hear the whine of the motors as you accelerated. This is a Mercedes. It is seriously quiet. The ride is pretty good as well. And okay, we're on these lovely Norwegian roads, but I think it'll be pretty good when it comes back to the UK as well. In terms of what the car feels like when you go around corners, well, it's stable enough. You don't get much feel from the steering, but this is an SUV after all, and it's a heavy one, about 2.5 tons. The battery weighs a lot. The battery is low, so it keeps the car flat. But we're not talking about a sports car here. I've mentioned the technology, and there's some driving modes that you can play with if you want to. You can cycle through maximum range, eco, comfort and sport, or set your own individual choice between those. It just feels as though it just changes the acceleration settings a little bit more. Car feels more eager if you're in sport. Obviously the steering firms up a little bit, but most people will probably just set it, as I have now, in comfort and sit back and enjoy the ride. Now, the thing that was interrupting is this system. It's a voice control system. They've never worked perfectly as far as I'm concerned, and I don't think this one does. So you can say, hey Mercedes,
what would you like to do?
Turn the aircon up. Thinking about it.
How can I help you?
Turn the aircon up. Still thinking about it.
The air conditioning is switched off.
Let's just leave it there, and be honest, it's going to interrupt us again, so I apologise about that. It's got these twin screens that you've seen on so many other Mercedes these days. It's a really nice setup. It just looks a little small in this car for some reason, and I'm going to be a little bit critical about the interior. Quality-wise, it is fantastic. It's all lovely, and this has got... here she goes again.
Can you say that again, please?
No, I don't think I will, but thanks for asking anyway. In terms of the design, I just think it's a little bit fussy. There's sort of a dotted grille on the top there. You've got these slats down the side that yeah, thank you, that you can play a tune on. I'm being picky here, but I'm not exactly turned on by the style of the interior. Now, I've spoken about the inside. The boot, 500 litres, that's going to be pretty much good for most families. It's good to drive. Let's have a look on the outside, shall we? So let me show you around the EQC. We'll start at the back, shall we? Seems like a good place to start. And well, as I always say, you be the judge whether you like it or not. I think it looks pretty good, pretty well resolved at the back. Quite a shallow window line, which doesn't make looking out that easy. But I like this light strip across the back. I also really like this paint finish. I'm not normally a fan of the matte paint jobs, but this one I really like. So let's have a look at the side. It's a really slippery car. Even with these running boards down the side, they are really aerodynamically efficient, as you'd expect this car to be, because it's electric. Now, the front, mixed bag as far as I'm concerned. This is an AMG line car, and most cars in the UK, I suspect, will be AMG line, but there are versions that get a big chrome strip that runs all the way around there, and for me it looks really cheap and nasty. Not what you'd expect on a premium electric car. This is much better, but I'm not entirely convinced. You can tell that this car is based on the GLE chassis, its size, its stature, its fairly shallow window line, and I'd like to have seen something a little bit different. Of course, Mercedes with bespoke electric car chassis are coming, but for the time being this is what you get. I'm not blown away by the looks of the things. I don't particularly like this strip here, which actually illuminates when you've got the headlights on. It doesn't quite sit properly with the rather cute DRLs that do look a little bit Vauxhall, if you don't mind me saying. But anyway, I think you get the gist. I'm not blown away by the looks. The car itself, pretty impressed with. It's refined, it's posh, it's got loads and loads of tech. Is it better than a Jaguar I-Pace or Audi e-tron? Well, sadly we can't say on the basis of a quick drive around these Norwegian roads, and it's bloody freezing out here, but it's certainly going to be a big contender.